All right, we've got Chuck Smith giving us the mountain view. Chuck, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Hi, Seth. Glad to be here this morning.
All right, so folks might remember legalization passing, Amendment 64. That's a change to the Constitution. That happened in November of 2012. And then we hit January 1st, 2014. That's when actually legal cannabis was available. And so we have maybe collapsed our memory because when 1090 got passed, it had to get signed by the governor, Governor Polis, of course. And that only happened about a quarter ago. We still have a little bit of work to do, right? In 1090, it's not black and white, night and day, everything changes.
Right. Yeah, well, you sure wish that these things moved quicker, but the reality is when 1090 was approved at the end of last year, then it had to still go through the final approval process by the governor. As you mentioned, he did sign it. During that period of time, for really the first few months, 6 months or so, the working groups were being put together. Those working groups are the ones that both represent industry as well as enforcement, as well as the MED and the other regulators that are involved. And so those working groups are now putting in place the rules that will actually allow for companies to apply and ultimately be granted the right to invest or acquire businesses here in Colorado under the 1090 rules.
Which is exactly the same type of thing that did happen post Amendment 64. Governor Hickenlooper at the time had to put together a steering committee and working groups, and then you all kind of figured out how we were going to regulate this.
Well, that's right. And it was even, it was quite complicated, frankly, in that you had a medical regime that was already in place and had rules around that were well known. But now you're going from 100,000 patients to 1 million consumers, and that took a minute. And to be precise, it took 1 year and 1 month from the time of the election through the time that January 1st, 2014 occurred. So yeah, there's a whole lot of work there, and just as similarly, there's a whole lot of work to make sure the guardrails are there and the protections are there so that the consequences we get from 1090 are the ones we intended. That is, quality companies putting capital into quality businesses here in Colorado so they can continue to grow and act responsibly within this industry here in the state. And ultimately, some of those companies will go outside of the state as well for their continued expansion.
As far as expansion of market, of audience, to continue that analogy, going from the medical patients to the populace in Colorado is similar to, we have to go to, the investments that can be made up until 1090 and to the investments that could possibly happen both internally and externally, as you say. Is that a good parallel to draw as far as just expanding that audience, so to speak?
Sure, I think it is. I mean, there's a variety of investments I think that get to occur with 1090. One of which I kind of am looking at it almost as phase 2 of cannabis in Colorado. Phase 1, I think, was building a regulated industry here in Colorado that I think rivals all. I don't think there's another state in the country that has the level of protection, proper regulations, and responsible legislation, if you will, to allow us to have a real vibrant industry that also provides safe and controlled cannabis. And I think we're a model for many. I look at 1090 very much the same way, in that if we do this right, what we'll get is investment that comes in that allows us to take what we've built here and take it to phase 2. I already know, several companies that are really positioning for this to be really a research hub for cannabis. And that's going to take money, but that actually allows new types of ideas, new investment capital, new, ways of doing business that we can innovate here and then push out through the rest of the industry. So this is a real positive thing for Colorado in particular.
Yeah, as you guys were first in the nation, so to speak, to be first in research, basically to become the Israel of the United States, I think that's a great kind of concept. just generally speaking, as far as timeline is concerned, you remember Amendment 64, it's completely different than 1090. But, if we're a quarter in only on after, Governor Polis signed it, what are we expecting? What are you expecting as far as timeline, understanding that you could be the only thing that's ever wrong is a forecast, right?
That's about right.
It's true.
I certainly understand that. Look, I think you said a quarter in. Yeah, we were a quarter in since the governor signed it, but I know that there were working groups that started almost immediately after the first of the year to start putting together the framework of this. So I think we actually have made a lot of progress. Our general counsel actually for Dixie Brands happens to be on one of the working groups, and so I get to stay kind of up to date on what they're doing in real time. We're really looking at having all the rules made and sort of everybody signing off on it so that sometime in Q4, let's call it in October, November timeframe, we can start receiving, or the MED can start receiving applications from companies that are interested in being vetted to invest and or acquire licensed holders here in Colorado. So, Dixie Brands will look to be, right at the forefront of filling out that application and applying so that we can work more closely with our Colorado licensee. But I know a lot of companies will be positioning for that Q4 application process.
Perfect. All right. That gives us a good construct based on the fact that not only are you dealing with what we're talking about now, but you're also, simply running a company, which is not easy. We're going to let you go. So
I appreciate that.
Time. Yeah, really appreciate kind of the update, and we're looking forward to checking back in with you down the line.
Hey, Seth, it's always a pleasure, man.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too.